Good morning, students. Uh, Today we have to be the discuss on the topic the workers' movement. Understand? Now the workers' movement in our country, not in our country, this has been the very important in the important particularly in the manufacturing center. Understand? Or the as the industrial growth happened right from the industrial revolution in England, and then after the you know very well massive exploitation began by the capitalist in the capitalist at the working places or in the factories. Understand? So the right from the beginning of the industrial revolution, understand, the workers for a long time they had been the struggling for their rights and for their for the remedy of their grievances. Understand? So now we know that capitalism came in our country, or the advent of the capitalism, or as well as the capitalist society even emerged in our country, or a new way of the capitalist society emerged in our country because of the advent or because of the impact of the Western individualism or Western capitalist system and the Western modernity system. So the factory, first of all, the factory protections we know began in England. So factory protection also emerged in India after the advent of the British in India, or the factory system within our country by the our indigenous capitalist group, capitalist group of India. Understand? Within the India, now they began to establish the or emerge in the different manufacturing field, like the cement, textiles. Major of major factories emerged in the textiles field. Understand? Or then after Bombay, Ahmedabad, Madras. Understand? This became the very important center of the manufacturing. Emerged as a manufacturing centers. Understand? Or mostly the indigenous or the natives capitalists now began to take interest in the establishing their own factories in our country for the manufacturing. In the 1860s, right from the 1860s, this process of the establishing the factory, the jute factory, understand, or the textile, or the jute, or the cement, and the other field also. And now here we are going to see a discussion on the specific characters industrialization in the colonial period. Okay, these our indigenous factory owners emerged during the colonial period. The general patterns of trade set up by the colonial regime was one under which the raw materials were procured from India and goods manufactured in the United States. One thing is that we know that the British, as they came, they never let our country to be the industrialized. Understand? Their intention was what only the furnished goods manufactured and commodity manufactured in England should be the influxed in India. Understand? And the India only they converted, and now they converted India into the converted India into as only as a raw material exporting country. Understand? Or the whatever the raw material was exported from India, these raw materials were just used in the huge machines of the Britain, or the huge factory or manufacturing centers of the Britain. The only we know that they converted, and they now try to convert our India and not let it with the industrialized. This was the policy of the British government. Understand? So the British government, the colonial wanted the market in the colony. Only the India was treated as a market, a big market for the manufactured goods from the Britain, and it was the influx in the remotest area of our country and remotest part of our country. It is furnished goods and the remotest from the remotest area of our country, the manufacturing the raw materials began to be the drained out from India, drained out from our country. So this process for the 200 years, that continued. Understand? So now here, these factories were established now in the ports, towns in Kolkata. So now here, the some factories were established in the ports towns of the Calcutta, Bombay, and the Madras. The three, because it was the very close to the sea, and for the transportation convenience, it was the looked good. Tea plantation in Assam were established as early in the 1839. Certain factories were established by the British here. Understand? Calcutta, Bombay, Madras, the three presidencies they had, we know very well, and the now and the Assam tea plantations. Okay, but in early stage of the colonialism, labor was very cheap. As we know that is still in India, labor is whatever the cheap is in India, labor is very cheap. Understand? And capital is very dear. Okay, so here in the during the colonial time also, or labor were very cheap for the British, and government did not regulate either wages or working condition. Why the labors were cheap? Because the British government had not regulated and paid the attention towards the deplorable condition and towards the impoverishment of the working class. But government had not, and now the government had not passed either the working condition or the any labor act or the regulation for the protection of the interest of the working class. The British government had not initially, and now here that the colonial period ensure supply of labor in the tea plantations, and on the other hand, the British government passed the act that was only to ensure the labor supply in the tea plantations. For that concern, understand, British government passed the act only that will ensure the labor for the plantation. That this kind for that the act was passed by the British government. Understand? And moreover, though the trade unions emerged later, or the workers did protest. Later on, the trade unions emerged, understand, and the workers did protest. Gradually, the work now the working class was accumulating with the frustration and the discontent, and that was to be the exploded. Understand that the working class were now just full of the discontent, dissents, or they, and moreover, protest. Their actions then were, however, more spontaneous than sustained. These reactions of the laborers, which there was no any regulations. They had been the exploiting, in the factories. Some of the nationalist leader also drew the in the workers into the anti-colonial movement. Some of our leaders, understand, nationalist leaders, they try to draw the attention of the nationalist movement or the British government towards the labor conditions. Understand? And now, war led to the expansion of industries in the country. As the First World War and the Second World War happened, so this now paved the way for the emergence or establishment of the expansion of the new factories in the country, and brought a great deal of the misery to the poor. But on the other hand, this brought a great destruction to the poor class. There were food shortage in India because of the war. On the other hand, the war, because of the war, during the First World War, as the British supply interrupted, Understand? During this period, and because during this period of the war, understand, our manufacturing, our indigenous manufacturing they just enhanced. Understand? But the conditions of the labor and the working class in the poor class became more deteriorated of the war. There were food shortage all over the country during the war period. Food shortage, sharp increase in the prices because of the war. Understand? The goods and the prices of the goods and the commodities now went up, and the height, understand, that was not accessible to the poor class. And there were the waves of the strike in textile mills in Bombay. Okay, so the in the Bombay we can say a spate or the waves of the strike in the Bombay working because of the price were very high, the wages was very low, the price of the goods because of the war went high. It was not the whatever they got as a wages but not up to mark of their subsistence level. Understand? So this or in September and October 17, there are around 30 recorded strikes happen in India in the 1917. That was the duration of the war, and strikes jute workers in Calcutta. There was important jute factory in Calcutta. Struck to work in Madras. Workers of the Banghingam or Karnataka mills. Okay, now they raised their protest for the increase in their wages. This labor class for increasing the wages, and moreover the working wages. Textile workers in Ahmedabad struck work for the increase in wage by the 50%. The Ahmedabad workers, they were now rigid for the enhancing their wages by the 50%. Understand? So this was a tussle began between the factory owners and the workers in the, and the first trade union now at this ultimately resulted in the formation of or in the foundation of the new labors or the new labors organization or the labors association or the union. And the first trade union was established in April 1918, where in Madras by BP Wadia, who first is social workers and members of the Theosophical Society. Okay, members of a Theosophical Society, BP Wadia, and social workers. He has first established the trade union in the Madras, first of all. And during the same year, Gandhiji also, he was also concerned with the labor's problem and the problem. So Gandhiji also organized in the same year, in the 1918, Gandhiji also Textile Labor Association, TLA, Textile Labor Association. In 1920, All India Trade Union Congress was formed in Bombay. 1920, All India Trade Union Congress formed in Bombay. And this ATAC was a broad-based organization involving the diverse ideology, and it was a very All India Trade Union Congress was a very broad organization and having its very broad ideology that now incorporated in its agenda a broad ideology. And more main ideological groups were the communist groups, and within this trade union, the one of the most effective, understand, or the group ideological group were the communist groups, and this group was led by the S.A. Dange or M.N. Roy. S.A. Dange, very prominent leader of the communist, and the M.N. Roy was also the moderates led by, and the moreover the other moderates leader, they led by the M. Joshi and B.B. Giri. And nationalists which involve people like and other nationalists also were involved in this communist movement or the trade union movement. Those were the Lala Rajpat Rai and Jawaharlal Nehru. Nehru and Lala Rajpat Rai also a big socialist, understand, or the radicals in thoughts. Okay, so these were the and the now formation of ATOC, All India Trade Union Congress, made the colonial government more cautious in the dealing with the laborers. So this organization now led the colonial government became the very conscious and the protective. It attempted to grant the workers some concession. So the because of the pressures from the all quarters, from the all sides, understand the British government now just relaxed the certain concession in order to contain the unrest, in order to now contain this and check this. In 1922, government passed the Fourth Factory Act. 1922, understand the Fourth Factory Act, and which reduced the working day of the 10 hours. Okay, working day was the more than the 10 hours. So now this Fourth Factory Act reduced the limit the 10 hours of the day, working day, and 1926 Trade Union Act was passed, 1926, which provided for the registration of trade unions and proposed some regulations also. By the mid of 1920s, Trade Union, All India Trade Union Congress had nearly this became the very big or the enhanced, nearly the 200 union affiliated to it, and its members stood around the 2,50,000. Its members were all over. And now, during the last few years of the British rule, communists gained considerable control over the all. Gradually, the All India Trade Union Congress was covered and the influenced by the communists, came under the grip of the communists. And the Indian National Congress chose to form another. So the Indian National Congress, this All India Trade Union Congress inclined and now came under the complete control of the Communist Party. So the Congress thought that to form a separate trade union. Understand? So the Congress formed National Congress, another called the Indian National Trade Union Congress, INTUC. The Congress now formed the INTUC in the May 1947. The Congress had its own trade union. In the split in ITUC, ITUC now has got the split in 1947, paved the way for the further split in the lines of the political party. The further again split happened on the trade unions in the autumn. Again further on the line of the party, apart from the working class movement being divided on the lines of political parties, these political parties at the national level, regional parties also started. Although this All India Trade Union divided on the party basis, so the regional parties also began to form their own trade unions, and the form owned by the 1960s, more and more trade unions and the workers union began to be the form at the regional level. Although the national level we have seen that, but the regional level, even the local level, or 1966 or 67, the economy suffered a major recession in our country, and which led to the decrease the production and the consequently employment. In the 1966-67, a great recession came. Again the recession, and because of that, the thousands of the workers lost their job or unemployment rampant. Consequently, there was a general unrest in all over the country. Understand? A general unrest because of the recession or because of the loss of job, lack of the job. Again, created the unrest among the working class because they had no job at all to do anywhere, and there was general unrest. 1974, there was a major railway workers strike, or 1974, all over the country, the major railway strikes occurred. Okay, and because this and during that time, Mrs. Indira Gandhi was now holding the power. Understand? She was the Prime Minister of India. Okay, so in the wake of this protest, procession, agitation, all where the Congress now, the Mrs. Indira Gandhi wanted to put down these all the movements and wanted to control these movements. And now the railway, the confrontations between the state and trade unions became the acute, and the everyday Mrs. Indira Gandhi government had to, the state had to be the confrontation with each other, and this became the very became and emerged very acute. That's why a very bitter in the country, a bitter position. And this is the union during the emergency. So the Mrs. Indira Gandhi now clamped the emergency over the country in 1900 June 1975. She imposed the emergency over the country to meet this situation, and the strikes all over the strikes were, and radical socialists were the very emergence. So because of that, to control this situation, Mrs. Indira Gandhi clamped the emergency over the country. Understand? And this was the condition or the curb the all trade union acted. Under this emergency, she curbed all the trade unions, Congress in the activity. This again was short-lived, and but short-lived. The workers' movement was very much part of the wider struggle for a civil liberty. And then after this emergency only proved to be the very short-lived, the worker continued as a civil as the continued their struggle for regaining or retaining their civil liberties all over the country. Or in contemporary context, if you see that globalization, now you studied it. Now the changes affecting the labor, the challenge before the trade unions are also of a new nature. A new nature of the challenge are also you need back to be the so that this can be the mentioned in the chapter 5 and the chapter 4. Understand? So the students, that workers movement, the certain points are there. You will now manage for your study, and you will prepare the working class. Okay. Today और है yes, working class is the and the more this is the okay for this today. The next topic I shall teach you the later.